And now, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our keynotes. Please welcome to the stage co-founder and Chief Content Officer of Groceryshop, Zia Daniell Wigder.
So Napoleon, he was known for a number of things: his wide-ranging military conquests, his defeat at Waterloo, his height. Rarely, however, do we think of him as the father of modern grocery. Yet surprisingly, he was behind one of the biggest advances in grocery history. In 1795, Napoleon offered a cash prize of 12,000 francs to whomever could create an effective way to preserve food. He wanted a consistent supply for his army as they endured bitter winters. 15 years after the contest was first announced, young chef Nicolas Appert won the prize. Nicolas had developed a way to heat, boil, and seal food in airtight glass jars, the same basic technology we still use to jar and can foods today. The lesson from this is that long-lasting innovation can come from the least expected places, and that innovations that may seem minor today could transform an entire industry long-term. So today we'll run through 4 forces having an impact on grocery: consumers, culture and politics, retailers and brands, and science and technology. Bear with me while I go very quickly through the presentation, but keep in mind the slides will be available after, so sit back, relax, and enjoy the next few minutes. We'll start with the force at the heart of all others: consumers. To tee up some of the trends we'll cover, by 2030, over 4 in 5 consumers will live in urban areas, a figure that's risen every year since the 1700s. Nearly a third of households will consist of a single person, up from 1/4 in 2001. 1 in 5 Americans will be elderly, up from 1 in 6 today. And by 2045, we will be an increasingly diverse nation as the white population drops to less than 50%. These changes cannot be underestimated, but they are often overlooked. So while sales of products like adult diapers have soared, the VC community have largely ignored this entire opportunity, with only about 0.5% of their funding going to businesses targeting the 65+ demographic. So let's look at a few of the different ways the consumer is changing today, starting with shifts in the overall population. Globally, the middle class is exploding, especially in countries like India and China, where it's expanding by hundreds of millions of people. But in the US, it's a different story. Here, the middle class, the yellow bar in the center, was actually shrinking until 2011 as the upper and lower classes grew. The division into higher and lower tiers with a smaller middle is one of the major forces in all of retail today. You see this in the explosion of dollar stores on one end and the growing revenues of luxury brands on the other. Another important trend, as I mentioned, is the growing diversity of the US population. By 2045, 1/4 of our population will be Hispanic and almost 10% will be Asian, the 2 fastest growing demographic groups. The change in the population and the increased influence of these groups are already being reflected in the growing Hispanic and Asian food categories. However, the US population overall is no longer growing like it used to. Even with immigration, which has typically helped drive the US population up, it grew last year at the lowest rate since 1937. Once again, the exceptions are at the 2 ends of the spectrum. Birth rates remain highest among those with the least education, and then among those with the most. So this suggests that the 2 ends of the spectrum are set to grow, as children of each of these 2 are statistically likely to mirror their parents. And it's not just demographics that are changing. Consumer preferences are shifting too. Roughly a third of US households have at least one member following a specific diet, and globally, 2/3 of the world's population exclude certain foods. In the US, younger consumers are often the most likely to exclude categories of food, for example, following vegan or vegetarian diets. And while there's been a rise in diagnosed allergies, the free-from movement is also being driven by increased awareness of sensitivity to ingredients. Consumers have ethical and health concerns around food sources, as food documentaries on social media and celebrity endorsements of certain diets have increased. So this has spawned entirely new food categories and brands. We've seen disruption by changes in preferences across all of retail, not just in grocery. In fashion, for example, the athleisure trend took off over the past decade, catching established retailers off guard and leading to skyrocketing revenues at new billion-dollar brands like Lululemon and Yeezy. And another major demographic shift has been the growth in one-person households. In the US, almost 30% of all households include just a single person. A one-person household often means less free time for cooking, making convenient grocery options like ready-made meals and pre-cut produce more appealing. This shift has wide-ranging implications affecting product packaging, merchandising, distribution, and more. Finally, it's important to note that demographic shifts and behavioral changes are affecting society overall, sometimes with negative impacts. We are now in the midst of a loneliness epidemic, which is having huge repercussions on human health. Loneliness has the same impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, making it more lethal than obesity. But while companies have invested billions in addressing obesity by promoting sports, fitness, and healthier food options, they've done almost nothing to address loneliness. We consider this to be one of the most overlooked opportunities today, and one that companies should consider as they develop new products and services. So wrapping up this section, bear in mind that your male customers no longer look like this, but rather like this, and that the most desired looks change with time, and these changes can impact all kinds of businesses. So turning our attention now to culture and politics. There are many different policies and regulations that impact grocery, but we're going to highlight just 3 that top the headlines today. First, it's almost impossible to read the news right now without seeing articles on tariffs and trade, particularly in relation to China. So retailers will be affected differently. UBS put together research that analyzed the percent of total retailer imports coming from China. As you can see, the percentages varied greatly, suggesting potential price hikes more in some areas than others. Which brings us to our second issue, privacy, which has wide-ranging implications for brands and retailers. Last year, GDPR came into effect in Europe, requiring consumers to opt in if they wanted to allow businesses to collect their personal data. The result was that many US sites blocked traffic from Europe or provided European visitors with stripped-down versions of their sites. In the US, the new CCPA law will come into effect in California on January 1st, providing new privacy rights to residents and mandating changes by companies that do business there. And there's renewed interest in breaking up big tech, in part due to concerns over concentrating consumer data in the hands of just a few. A desire to break up big tech is a rare issue that unites the political right and left. And finally, our third issue, packaging and plastic. Governmental policies have long regulated what goes into our food, but are now expanding to talk about what goes around our food. There's new focus on reducing product packaging, as well as banning single-use plastic bags, styrofoam cups, and more. Globally, plastic bags are now banned in 32 countries, with additional regulation underway in another 94. In the US, individual states have moved toward various programs addressing plastic bag use. And now, moving from politics to culture, in an increasingly tech-centric society, consumers are demanding the humanization of brands, starting with their values. Last month, a group of almost 200 CEOs of major US corporations issued a statement redefining the purpose of a corporation, challenging the idea that their goal is to serve shareholders and maximize profits. Instead, they assert that companies should invest in employees, provide value to consumers, deal ethically with suppliers, and support local communities. CPG in particular has been at the forefront when it comes to cause, a topic we heard about from Carolyn earlier from P&G. In the 1970s, for example, Absolut Vodka was the first brand to feature full-page ads in gay publications. And more recently, in relation to P&G, they won an Emmy for an ad called The Talk that discussed race. It's a fine line, however. Marketing campaigns like these have to be executed with caution, as brands have been taken to task for rolling out what have been seen as tone-deaf approaches to race and other issues. Going beyond marketing to fully embrace cause is becoming important in retail. So last year, in a high-profile case, Dick's Sporting Goods stopped selling assault weapons and raised the minimum age for gun purchases. Their sales are outpacing the market. Walmart similarly added more ammunition restrictions earlier this month, with other retailers like Kroger, Walgreens, and CVS requesting shoppers not open carry guns. And Patagonia has seen revenue soar as it's taken a stronger stance on issues, refusing to co-brand some of its apparel with certain types of companies. So brands must now identify who they are and what they stand for. It's no longer okay to be passive on important issues to consumers. Shoppers are looking for leadership from the companies they buy from and rewarding those who take a stand. So, shifting now to talking about the changing retail landscape, new entrants are constantly breaking into the list of top retailers and ousting others with decades of experience. Walmart CEO Doug McMillon keeps this image on his phone. It includes the top retailers over the past 8 decades to remind himself that retailers constantly come and go. And if we look at what's happened in grocery retail in North America over the past 20 years, you'll see the same types of shifts. So aside from Super Kmart, all of the companies that fell off the top 20 list over the years are or were traditional grocery retailers. By contrast, other than Publix and Trader Joe's, all the companies which came onto the top 20 lists are non-traditional grocers. They're either convenience stores, drugstores, discounters, or mass merchants. Target now tops the list of new additions given its fast-growing grocery business. And Target set its sights on grocery given the potential opportunity. As we heard from Stephanie, Target gets just 20% of revenues from the grocery category, in comparison to Walmart, where the grocery business generates over half of all sales. And in addition to mass merchants looking to boost their sales in this area, there's also a wave of new types of grocery stores expanding in this area. So dollar stores in particular are making big inroads, with Dollar General having broken into the list of top 20 retailers. And we've seen this dollar store explosion being one of the biggest trends in retail in recent history. As you can see, over the last decade, dollar stores have opened at a rate of 3 per day, and Dollar General alone is planning to open almost 1,000 additional stores, making it the fastest expanding US retailer by a wide margin. And note that while dollar stores are a nationwide phenomenon, they remain heavily concentrated in certain states, often in areas where other grocery options are not available nearby. Another category of retailer, drugstores, are also expanding their grocery options. Drugstores' traditional businesses face challenges. In addition to grocery stores launching their own pharmacies, drugstores are seeing lower profits from prescription drugs. They're also upgrading the in-store experience. These upgrades include health services like nutrition seminars and diabetes consultations, turning drugstores into wellness centers. Additionally, new partnerships are emerging. Walgreens has partnered with Kroger and FedEx to drive in-store traffic and reduce the need for shoppers to make multiple stops. The company has also partnered with Birchbox to upgrade its beauty aisles. At competitor CVS's Beauty IRL concept stores, Glam Squad ambassadors offer blowouts and makeup applications, introducing shoppers to beauty and hair care brands sold at CVS. And when we look at convenience stores, some like 7-Eleven, Wawa, and Quick Trip are all upgrading their stores, expanding in categories like craft beers and meal kits. These new options are contributing to higher overall growth rates at C-stores. Yet, they must still contend with declining weekly visits, so are now looking to engage shoppers by expanding loyalty programs and food services. So 7-Eleven, for example, recently started delivering to hotspots like parks and beaches, while Wawa is partnered with Uber Eats and Grubhub. And the low-cost grocery model has also taken off, with Germany's Aldi taking the lead. Aldi's on track to become America's third largest supermarket chain behind Walmart and Kroger, backed by one of the company's highest NPS scores. With 1,900 stores currently open across 36 states and 2,500 planned by the end of 2022, there's a near constant stream of grand openings. These are just the ones listed on the site currently. In addition to offering extensive private brands, Aldi has kept operational costs low through a Spartan style that requires shoppers to deposit a quarter to use shopping carts and also to bag their own groceries. The company is expanding its reach with younger shoppers too, by increasing the size of the produce department and its selection of organics. The resulting low prices and time savings have caused drops in prices at other retailers located nearby. And finally, a word on Amazon, the company that's responsible for half of all e-commerce sales in the US. Amazon has penetrated the online grocery market with about 24% share, but to a lesser degree, the overall grocery market with just 2% market share. So following its $13 billion acquisition of Whole Foods in 2017, Amazon has looked to merge grocery and e-commerce. The challenge, of course, of offering super-fast delivery from grocery stores is that picking and packing is more challenging in stores than it is in giant warehouses. However, growth at Whole Foods is largely coming from deliveries, and the new stores are set to include more of a hybrid design to streamline e-commerce fulfillment. Additionally, to help Whole Foods become more affordable, Amazon lowered prices for a standard basket of goods for Prime members by about 2.5% in 2 years. Produce and dairy prices have been cut the most, while items like bread and snacks have marginally increased. Other acquisitions have also contributed to Amazon's growth. Amazon's acquisition of robotics provider Kiva Systems back in 2012 propelled Amazon's fulfillment operations forward. According to Deutsche Bank, Amazon reduced the click-to-ship cycle from over 60 minutes for humans to just 15 minutes for robots. And more recently, Amazon has expanded its own delivery network and rolled out incentives for employees to launch their own package delivery services. So shifting away from the landscape of brands and retailers for a minute to talk about their actual offerings, let's look at some of the trends in physical retail stores. Square footage per square foot has declined since 2010, partly driven by the growth of small formats such as convenience, drug, and dollar stores. Grocery stores have shrunk from their previous average of 40,000 square feet, with many newer stores coming in under 20,000, and some, like Trader Joe and Aldi's, measuring closer to 12,000 on average. The overall experience has changed as well, with experiential retail meaning many different things. Some experiences provide shoppers with greater functionality, enabling them to test out products, while others offer pure entertainment, like movies or wine bars. And both approaches are meant to drive shoppers into stores, but for different reasons. So if we look across all retail categories for guidance, there's a spectrum of retailers that combine entertainment and function into experiential retail. Some, like Canada Goose, provide immersive experiences that directly aim to drive sales. They have cold lockers that enable shoppers to try winter coats in temperatures as low as 13 below. And then several athletic apparel retailers move a bit to the right, with REI's rock climbing walls enabling shoppers to try out merchandise while also building community and providing entertainment. Mattress startup Casper offers $25 naps on their Dreamery mattresses at their store in New York. And beauty brands like Glossier and L'Occitane take a hybrid approach in their stores, offering Instagrammable moments while also dedicating parts of the store to try out products. For example, this rainfall sink to test hand soaps. And in the largely entertainment category are the stores of brands like Museum of Ice Cream or Winky Lux, which seem to be built almost entirely as Instagrammable experiences. Brands looking to launch new in-store experiences must evaluate these new offerings based on the same two filters to determine their goals, realizing the results of those initiatives further to the left will be easier to measure than those to the right. And we'll flip now from in-store shopping to waiting at home for orders to arrive. One way to look at the different options is in terms of how far a shopper would have to move in order to get groceries from the kitchen, assuming he or she has a phone, a laptop, or voice assistant nearby. So the option that requires no moving is in-home delivery. And in late 2017, Amazon took a first step in this direction with Amazon Key, a delivery service that allows couriers to place deliveries just inside the door. For those of you with dogs, however, sadly, they will not enter if they hear barking. Walmart in-home delivery is set to launch this fall and will take this concept a step further, providing direct-to-refrigerator service for groceries. Shoppers looking for the doorstep delivery have an option of a number of third-party providers, including Instacart, Shipt, and DoorDash, as well as retailer offerings from the likes of Albertsons, FreshDirect, and Peapod that operate their own delivery vehicles. For some, the next closest delivery options may be pickup stations rolled out in different convenient locations. So Canada's Loblaws, for example, offers delivery lockers at train stations in Toronto. And finally, we get to the store, where half of all online grocery orders are collected. Grocery retailers already offer a wide variety of pickup options at stores, from outside lockers to delivery straight to shoppers' cars. Drive-through and curbside pickup have also become increasingly popular. That brings us to innovation in science and technology, our final set of trends. Grocery retailers are using new technologies in every part of the value chain. Blockchain is one area that is poised to revolutionize the supply chain by offering consumers and retailers new ways to track food sources, given that each year, 1 in 10 people fall ill and 400,000 people die globally due to contaminated food. Walmart partnered with IBM to work on a food safety blockchain solution. Walmart mandated that all suppliers of leafy green vegetables upload their information by the end of this month. This was largely due to the previous E. coli outbreak in romaine lettuce. Previously, the process took about 7 days on average to trace the source of food, but with the new solution, it takes 2.5 seconds. Others, like French retail giant Carrefour, have adopted blockchain to track and trace chicken, eggs, tomatoes, and more shipped from farms to stores. In China, both Alibaba and JD have adopted blockchain to combat food fraud and improve food safety. We also see grocery fulfillment and operations going from a manual process to one that robots facilitate. ABI Research predicts the number of warehouses using robotics will grow from 4,000 to 50,000 globally by 2025, and about half of those warehouses will be in the US alone. We consider robotics and automation to be such a transformative trend in grocery that we spent a few weeks filming our own video, providing a look at this area. More can be seen in 360 degrees in the dome in the exhibit hall. Robotics are also transforming our workforce. A study published just over a week ago estimated that more than 120 million workers globally will need to be retrained over the next 3 years as digitization, automation, and advances in AI will disrupt the working world. Amazon alone plans to retrain 100,000 workers. Companies will require new kinds of skills with profound implications for career paths. Robotics and automation are not just having an impact on the supply chain and store operations, they're also set to have an impact on the last mile. Kroger, for example, is partnering with autonomous vehicle delivery company Nuro, pictured here, while Walmart and Ford have teamed up to investigate using self-driving cars for delivery. Walmart has also launched delivery tests with companies like Gatik and Waymo. And as you may have seen in the exhibit hall, we have a RoboMart, and Stop & Shop is conducting a similar test with them. So customers summon a RoboMart vehicle, which has different grocery items on board. Customers select their items and are charged via the app. Automated checkout is another transformational technology that we expect to have wide-ranging implications. The approach to automated checkout in grocery has generally fallen into 2 categories: mobile self-checkout and camera-based solutions. Mobile self-checkout allows consumers to use a wireless handheld scanner or a mobile app to scan and bag products while shopping. These mobile solutions are offered by a range of grocery retailers, from Kroger's Scan Bag Go to Meijer's Shop and Scan. Smaller grocery retailers like Fairway and Family Fare also use this technology. Additionally, there are many new camera-based checkout-free solutions where ceiling-mounted cameras detect what shoppers have put in their baskets. The best-known example is Amazon Go, but funding is pouring into others like Trigo, Standard Cognition, Zippin, and Grabango, all of which offer camera-based automated checkout solutions. So a new era of cashierless solutions promises to change not just checkout, but entire store layouts, challenging everything from the location of impulse purchases to the nature of store exits. So again, it's important to remember that a technology that seems like it can address a single issue can have widespread implications. Voice assistants are another area set to have a substantial impact on grocery. The technology is being adopted rapidly. eMarketer estimates that by the end of the year, over 100 million people in the US will use voice assistants at least monthly. And the most popular areas where voice assistants are used for search look familiar: restaurants and cafes, grocery stores, and food delivery. There's a widely cited study last year that indicated only 2% of voice assistant owners had actually used the assistant to make a purchase, However, that misses the point, which is that this technology, like mobile before it, is at an early stage. It's set to explode, but once all the pieces are in place. The success of voice commerce depends not just on consumers, but also on the development of a range of easy-to-use browsing and buying options. Brands and retailers have their work cut out to educate consumers on the availability of benefits of different voice-based applications. And finally, let's turn our attention to personalization. The concept of digital personalization has been around for decades, but only recently have we started to make real strides. So if we looked at personalized product recommendations, here's where we were relatively recently. Since you bought this soy milk, you might also like this cereal, you might like this almond milk, or even you might like this glass pitcher. Personalization was initially based on manual tagging of products with items that could potentially be of interest. More recently, brands and retailers started to focus on personalizing search results based on the shopper's buying history. So here, for example, are the results for a search for fruit when I'm not logged into the Peapod site, and then once I am logged in. Peapod knows what I've ordered in the past and understands when I search for fruit, the types of results I'm likely looking for. So we're reaching a point where many recommendation engines are AI-based and starting to understand user behavior better than we do. So while we've gone from recommending related products, recommendations are increasingly able to predict demand for entirely different categories. So the next step is, since you bought this soy milk, there's a 90% chance you'll like this tropical vacation. With AI, we no longer know why certain products are being recommended to consumers. The machine is now smarter than we are at connecting past and future behavior. This can raise challenges, however, as AI has been known to have biases related to race, gender, and more. Brands and retailers using AI-based solutions must be careful to monitor the results being generated and to talk to their solution providers about how to think through these issues. And it's also important to make sure consumers are still able to discover new offerings even as personalization increases. In the same way we've seen the negative effects of echo chambers when it comes to the opinions we hear, we need to make sure personalization doesn't put shoppers in product echo chambers. Retailers must ensure shoppers have the option to leave their comfort zone to explore new flavors and tastes. And while we've made great progress in personalization, our world is still only marginally personalized. As we've just discussed, there have been great leaps forward in the personalization of digital experiences. We're starting to make headway in digital products as well. The entertainment industry, for example, is on the cusp of an AI revolution in creating new personalized content for individuals. Think customized plot lines, musical refrains, or movie endings. Physical experiences, too, are being personalized as new tools like clienteling make inroads and smart labels are used to identify loyal shoppers and to offer them specific promotions. The area that remains truly nascent, however, is the personalization of physical products, creating unique products for each individual. We've seen some companies move in this direction. Startups like Curology in skincare or Function of Beauty in hair care offer consumers the option to create customized products based on their unique needs. Larger companies, too, have gotten into the game. Brands like L'Oreal and Shiseido, for example, offer customized skin serums. In food, similar startups have emerged both in the US and overseas. In Germany, cult favorite My Muesli enables shoppers to create customized cereal concoctions. But we're now reaching an entirely different level of personalization. So our German example, My Muesli, recently launched DNA-optimized muesli combinations. Others are getting into the game, such as Epigen Care in skincare or GenoPalette in food. And while it's tempting to dismiss these offerings as outlandish, going forward, it's likely that the food we eat and the products we consume will increasingly be optimized for us in the same way digital experiences are today. And finally, when it comes to product innovation, there's far more happening than just customization. Today, we're seeing an unprecedented number of entirely new products being brought to market, with many falling into the category of next-generation versions of existing products. So one poster child is, of course, the $5 billion plant-based protein market, with brands like Beyond Meat, whom we heard from earlier, and Impossible Foods, taking this industry to an entirely new level as compared to the veggie burgers of years past. A Barclays report predicted that this market could reach $140 billion globally over the next decade and take 10% of the total market for meat. QSRs like Burger King and Dunkin' Donuts have begun to embrace this trend with Impossible Burgers and Beyond Sausage. CBD is another well-known example. Extracted from cannabis with either ethanol or carbon dioxide, CBD is now infused into a variety of products, including topicals, edibles, and beverages, with new brands like Recess and Vibes emerging. And cannabis, too, is gaining momentum, especially in the beer category. Last year, Constellation Brands invested more than $4 billion in the world's largest cannabis business, Canadian producer Canopy Growth. Others like AB InBev, Molson Coors, and Lagunitas have all partnered with cannabis companies, while Boston Beer Company announced just 2 weeks ago its intention to get into the space. So wrapping up this section on science and technology, as brands and retailers think about developing new products, remember that many of the world's great product advances were the result of thinking entirely differently about consumer needs. Brands must take a leadership role rather than relying entirely on what consumers tell them they want. As the story goes, if I ask my customers if they prefer hot tea or iced tea, half would say hot, half would say iced, and we'd end up selling lukewarm tea as the solution. So in conclusion, we come back to Napoleon. He's hardly remembered for his contribution to the evolution of grocery. In fact, when it comes to food, he gets more credit in the form of a particularly delicious French pastry. However, over 200 years later, the lesson still holds that innovation can come from the most unlikely places. So we've just covered a lot of different trends in grocery. Bear in mind that any one of them could upend the entire industry as we know it. And with that, thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.